everyone, I'm Verity Butler and I'm the editor of Feed Magazine, and today we're having a live streaming masterclass and we have with us a panel of experts across the industry. So if we want to start over with Fabio, would you like to introduce yourself and then we can go from there?
Yeah, sure, pleasure. Thanks for having me here. I'm Fabio Gallo. I'm General Manager of VOD for Europe and Asia. I'm in the sport and streaming business for about 15 years. I'm happy to be with all of you guys.
Great to be here with you all. My name is Scott Kidder. I'm a Senior Engineering Manager at Mux, where I manage our Mux Data Video Analytics product, our analytics engineering and platform experience groups. I've been here at Mux for about 7 years, been in the industry for a while, and again, really happy to be here.
I'm Adrian Roe. I'm Chief Exec of Ideas. We build large-scale live streaming platforms and have just launched a kind of low-code video production suite called Norsk.
Hi everybody, Jean Macher. I'm the Senior Director for SaaS solution at Harmonic. So this is about our video streaming platform offered as a service. Glad to be with you today.
Thanks, everyone. So obviously we've got quite a range of experts here, and you all must have quite a range of experiences of live streaming, both in terms of its evolution and the technology that you've seen evolve over the years. So could we start off by just sort of you taking it in turns to share what you've experienced with the industry?
Go first, if yeah, we do. So Ideas is responsible for a lot of live events, a mixture of sports broadcasters and also industries. A lot of financial fair disclosure type events. Accounting for probably a couple 100,000 a year or so of those. And I think one of the key learnings I would say from that is to treat scale and reliability as first-class citizens. To plan from the very beginning with those in mind, because doing a successful live event 100,000 times a year is, is very, very different to doing a successful live event, say 4 or 5 times a year, and then just doing it more. That process doesn't work, and you need to sort of automate the whole what if, type scenarios when things don't quite go like they might do in lab conditions. You don't want a human being having to getting involved and manually fix it, because that simply doesn't scale. So as a 10,000-foot view, that's probably one of the things I would say to concentrate on most.
Maybe I can, touch on that, because first I concur absolutely. And one of the lessons learned when you do live streaming, we do a lot of live sports and big scale events, like Super Bowl, the Olympics, and the World Cup. But live is different than other, streaming workloads, and it's harder. If you think of SVOD or fast, maybe we can quickly compare that to live streaming. And a lot of the SVOD and fast can be prepped, has to do with preparing files that can be QC'd and, streamed to individuals. But when you do live sports, it's really getting a live source, from a venue, production facility. All of that happens in real time. You have to deliver it to many viewers. It's not like VOD streaming where it goes to one person. So what I'm trying to say is that if anything goes wrong along the chain, what we call the blast radius, the number of viewers that can be impacted potentially is huge. That's why live sports, live streaming is more difficult. And like Adrian was saying, you have to build enough, redundancy and also enough processes, including people, that, you know what to do if something, happens. You don't want to improvise, so it's about resiliency of the technology, but also about the people to, support the live events with, processes and procedure in place, so that you know what to do in as much as possible in any situations. So you do, redundancy, multiple cloud regions, you do multi-CDNs, all of that, but also the people, the teams that manage the live event is also a very important part of live streaming.
Yeah, I think the live streaming is also about live operations. like Jean and Adrian also are mentioning. So about people, about supporting clients when they need it. And I think, you know, with advance of internet speed and video compression techniques, live streaming sports events now began to offer a higher video quality. So I started in 2006, 2007, MotoGP video pass at Dorna back in those days. Clearly the quality of, you know, the internet connection wasn't like today. The same quality of live ops are not what they are today. So Viewer, I think, gained the ability now to, for instance, to switch from different camera angles to have a very good quality live streamings. They're not talking too much right now about buffering like we were talking years before. So I think, you know, live streaming events are now changing. The quality is increasing. I see many mid-sized, let's say, sports rights owner embracing new technology. Like, for instance, I know the great platforms of Harmonic, and I know how they are delivering great services there. So that kind of also knowledge is about what can be done and what you can do is now into the DNA of each sports rights owner right now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting sort of talking about how we sort of define live streaming. And I guess that kind of leads quite nicely onto the next question, which I think you've all touched on in certain respects. But how do you feel live streaming is sort of impacting the broadcast tech landscape now, right now in the present? Fabio, do you want to start as you finish with the last question?
Yeah, I would say live streaming, you know, has brought a wave of positive changes to the broadcast tech landscape, make it really more accessible, enjoyable for user, for everyone. Say, first, anyone can be a broadcaster, to be honest with you guys. So the live streaming platforms have made incredibly easy for people of all backgrounds to become a broadcaster. Now with just a smartphone and internet connection, you can share your passion, talents, whatever you are, a musician, gamer, educator, you can start your live streaming event. At Believe, for instance, we have a real example of some TV filmmaker and producer. They started to shift to from traditional business to business video streaming distribution to more D2C platforms, and now they're streaming live the first events. Big publisher are embracing the transformation of the streamings. Sport entities, even the smaller one, are now starting to distribute thousands of live games on a daily basis throughout, for instance, Believe platforms, increasing the audience and generating, you know, new user data, tracking user behavior, and in some cases are starting also to increase, you know, revenue exponentially. Then there are real-time connections, right? One of the most, in my opinion, exciting aspect of live streaming is the ability to connect with your audience in real time. As a content creator, you can interact with viewers, you know, through a live chat, responding to comments, questions as they come in, come out, or you can generate poll, quiz. You can decide who is the most valuable player online, and so on. It basically creates a wonderful sense of community where people start to, you know, to interact a little bit between each other. And last, I would say, would be the accessible entertainment. So I used to say, normally people are very hungry of content. They are always looking for new content. And live streaming has made entertainment more accessible than ever before. So you can access everywhere from any platforms. You can watch your favorite sports events or tournaments. You can attend virtual conferences, and that is simply fantastic if you compare to 10 years or 15 years ago.
I'll jump in there too. Just the opportunities for engagement from the audience perspective, and just having lower latency kind of feedback loops back to the content provider or the infrastructure providers that are involved in live streaming are leaps and bounds more advanced than they were 10, 15 years ago. And that's opened up a ton of different opportunities, but also a lot of challenges, technical challenges that are exciting and definitely ready to be solved, both by myself and, you know, other companies in the industry. So it definitely opens up a bunch of new opportunities that I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think I'd start by saying I'm not sure I even see the difference that much between broadcast and streaming anymore. I think the overlap is so fundamental now that treating them as in some way fundamentally different isn't necessarily helpful. And each has learned from the other. I think broadcast has pushed through extremely high production values that you're now seeing in kind of live streaming events, and be that a sports event or even a sort of basic town hall, what a consumer now accepts as a minimum quality level is completely different. Having a broadcast that didn't have some kind of metadata, or this is Adrian, he's the chief exec of this, as a ticker, and then the relevant slides and so on and so forth. And that 10 years ago that would have been high-end broadcast, and now it's accessible streaming, and you're kind of seeing the same in reverse, I think. But as I say, to such an extent that I think it's almost the distinction's slightly false. But what we're starting to see quite a lot of from our broadcast customers, traditionally we've sort of started in the live streaming and OTT spaces, but increasingly have broadcast customers, and the ability to enrich data and provide personalized experiences, I think is one of the areas where broadcast is really starting to pick up. I want to see this particular camera angle because it is interesting to me. And then absolutely hand in hand with that, I think the most important word in all of this is community. You've got massive amounts of serial monogamists. Someone will join Disney because they like that particular series. When they've finished binge watching that particular series, they'll go on to some competing provider and over and over and over again. I had the stats around, I think it's people change on average 3 times a year or something, like absolutely terrifying stats. And anything you can do to create that sense of community and togetherness and so on, I think that there's a lot that the broadcast industry is starting to take from kind of the traditional online business in that space.
I suppose, taking from the points you've all mentioned there, would you say as sort of vendors that there's also a sort of challenge that comes with there's an expectation when it comes to sort of live and broadcast and things like that, because now it's reached a point where it's before it was hopefully you'd get a good stream, but now it's like you have to have a good stream every time. As vendors, maybe you are, Sean, do you find that's a challenge that you've faced in present times, considering where live streaming is now?
Yes. So looking at the impact on broadcast technology, impact of streaming, maybe slightly different angle, and then I'll go back to your question. But for us, the cloud adoption for our customers varies depending on the type of workflow. Streaming is a workflow that lends itself obviously very nicely to the cloud. And that's where, there is no question, when you do streaming, you deliver over the internet to the end users, it makes sense to run your platform in the cloud. And that's where the cloud adoption is, the most obvious. Other broadcast workflow, not so much. Also, there is an aspect of the different regions of the world, different, cloud adoption too. But I would say that live streaming, sports streamings is one of the use cases where cloud, is used for, pretty much everybody that does, a live streaming. So that helps, and that has an impact, on the broadcast industry to accelerate, if you like, that transition to a cloud workflow. Back to what you're saying, yes, you do this, but you have to have the same resiliency and reliability, like when you were doing, a live broadcast. So that means that, you do streaming, but you add full geo redundancy, because as you start doing, cloud and streaming, you learn that you can lose a node. So you need to be protected against that. So you have the notion of self-healing platform that can auto-scale. But not only that, but if you lose a region, now you need another, platform in a region to pick up the slack and to do that seamlessly. So there are a lot of challenges that come with, number one, what I said, moving to the cloud, and then operating with broadcast quality in mind, in that cloud environment. Okay, so you can absolutely do it. You can build enough redundancy, in your cloud platform to meet the requirement of a broadcast quality live stream. It also has to do with, making the right decision if something goes bad. And that goes back to what I was saying in my introduction, what we call DevOps team, people that have plenty of automated tools to monitor what's happening, but also know what to do. They have procedures in place. They know what to do, especially for live, because live, like I said, you need to be battle tested and you don't improvise. Long story, but I think you get my point.
I think there's an interesting kind of bit of circularity that we're seeing in that space. We kind of started, when Ideas was founded 13 years ago, all of our focus was on the cloud and high availability in the cloud. And NASDAQ, one of our customers, had 168 live events running in US East when US East disappeared off the face of the planet for 4 days or 5 days. They didn't get a support call, and neither did we. And you can deliver amazing experiences. Nobody noticed. Watching an entire data center that was running 168 live events goes down. But actually, part of what we're seeing is a high degree of interest in a return to tin, which is quite interesting. I think some of the economic models associated with the cloud is a fantastic way of scaling. And when you have an organization like NASDAQ, NASDAQ's an incredibly spiky use case. And on a quarterly earnings reporting point, they might have hundreds or even 1,000 events running in parallel. On a rainy Tuesday in February, they might have none. And you make your money in the cloud on the day you have none, not on the day you have 1,000. And what we're seeing with servers are just getting big. We bought a commodity server that was expensive, but not stupid expensive, that came with 256 physical cores. We've put various video accelerator cards in it from the likes of NetInt and Xilinx and NVIDIA and all those kinds of stuff. And in 2U, I don't know how many hundreds of 1080p outputs you can do, but it is many, many hundreds. And that's an awful lot of processing power sat in 2U that without breaking the bank. So what we're increasingly seeing is customers saying that they've had a journey into the cloud that maybe started 5 or 6 years ago. That's fantastic for high availability. It's fantastic for scaling out. But actually, we're seeing an awful lot of interest in saying, let's take our base use case and bring that back into our own control, because the economics of that increasingly are starting to look quite attractive.
Yeah, live streaming it can obviously be notoriously expensive and complex to operate, but there's also just a greater desire for, especially in the UGC space, for people to produce and generate like live stream content. Being able to handle that increase in number of live streams economically is a real challenge. It doesn't necessarily directly relate to the broadcast space, but UGC content is increasingly closing in on broadcast in terms of production quality or just stream quality. And so in my experience, like from the live stream standpoint, there's the difference between the two is narrowing. They're becoming much, much more similar.
Okay, so we've kind of touched on this a little bit actually, but sort of what are some of the most profitable or creative ways that a business could leverage live streaming technology? Because obviously people are incorporating that into their marketing strategy more, be it like, a major media company or smaller startup. So yeah, have you as sort of experts in the technology itself, do any of you have sort of any ideas of the best way to leverage that technology?
Some stuff out there, and I think it comes back to the community point that several of us have made already, which is profitability comes from long-term relationships and a degree of stickiness. And I think there's been some really interesting innovations in that space. So one of our biggest use cases is financial fair disclosure, which has obviously been getting financial fair disclosure. One way of viewing that is a watch together party, which is mandated by law, because I'm doing something that might impact my share price, and I need to not be able to differentiate from from people. And so certain spaces have been enforcing that careful timed release of information, understanding what's important. Is it actually the picture that's important there, or what the chief exec or the finance director is saying, and the associated slides and so on and so forth. But I think over and over and over again, it comes back to creating community and interactivity. And again, there were some comments earlier about the importance of low latency, and for certain use cases. And I, again, completely and utterly agree with that, because it is that sense of having interacted with my peers or people with whom I am in some kind of community that then generates that sense of belonging and stickiness, and from that comes profit. There's also comments just about efficiency, which may be operational efficiency. If you can automate the whole kind of what if, some of our customers have gone from having live events where maybe they had 1 or 2 operational staff per event to where they now maybe have 1 operational monitoring staff for 20 events, because the what ifs are taken care of themselves. Don't ask a human being to make a decision that a computer can make in a fraction of a second, for them, and in a repeatable, reliable way. So, that's kind of the opposite of profitability. That's reducing your costs and managing your overheads carefully, but the two have to go hand in hand.
Thank you, Adrian. Fabio, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I think if you take it from more general perspective, I think there are a couple of areas where I see live streaming technology is really helping businesses. So if you look, for instance, the interactive gaming and esports events. So in these cases, businesses really there can tap into the booming gaming esports industry by live streaming gaming tournaments. Competitive events, product launches, targeting specific gamers users, and these allow businesses to connect, with highly engaged and techie savvy audience, and that could be a very potential big revenue stream, in my opinion. Second one is we were talking about it quite a lot, is the live sports events. As Jean mentioned, is also can be quite complex and can be also in some cases dramatic, right? Because there's also a mindset shift, but live streaming allows business to broadcast live sports events to global audience, and that's the most important thing. This can be done, for the classic official website with the .ott platform, with social media. So you basically provide access to games, matches, tournaments, and business can generate revenue from subscription. They can generate revenue from pay-per-view models. They can generate revenue from advertisement. It can be an hybrid model. It can be really whatever in terms of strategy. And also they have to start, in my opinion, specifically sports companies to leverage the ecosystem. And when I mean the ecosystem, not just thinking the ARPU as the result of what the user is generating in terms of revenue from a platform perspective, but also what can be done outside of the video streaming perspective. So what is the ARPU for a user that received a specific offer for attending a specific VIP match? What is the ARPU that includes, for instance, the personalized sponsorship advertisements for that specific person? So there are many ways of considering a useful and important business-oriented solution like the streaming events for sports in particular.
Scott, obviously, Mux do have a lot of involvement with live sports as well. So do you have anything sort of to tail onto that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. With our Mux data product, we've got a really great. We've got a lot of traction in the M&E, like media and entertainment space. A lot of large broadcasters. Almost all of those broadcasters have found a lot of use in our streaming exports of QoE and viewer engagement data. That includes like Reliance with the Indian Premier League series that they ran recently, Discovery, Warner Brothers, HBO. They all make heavy use of our exports, and how that's relevant here is extremely valuable for these broadcasters to be able to join that data set of showing viewer engagement with all the other sources of data that they've got, being able to understand how quality of experience and live stream reliability correlates with customer engagement. and how they value the product, how they value the service. So it's no longer just about delivering frames from one end of the internet to the other. It's also making sure that the customers have a good experience and that they're getting value from the product. Data is a huge portion of that, beyond just the video stream itself.
So I couldn't agree more. User experience is key. And so something that I want to mention as a trend that we see in live sports streaming in particular, that kind of reconcile together the creativeness that you were mentioning, the efficiency and the user experience, is how on streaming platform you deliver live games. It used to be, on linear channels, but more and more it's on single streaming event, pop-up event, if you like. So it's a big difference that has a lot of impact. So, if you think about it, it used to be, in the good old days, you had the TV channel, the complication of feeding a match, with a start, we're not exactly sure when, and then not exactly sure when on the linear channel. As streaming came along, basically you just took that linear channel, putting on the streaming platform, right? It just ended up being delivered via streaming service, but in terms of the operation and creation of production, of that live game, nothing changed. But the trend is to decouple the live game from the linear channel and make it available as a single streaming event. So it's only available for the duration of the game, and operationally, it means that now you have to spin up and down resources dynamically. But going back to what we're discussing, running in the cloud, is a great environment to have that elasticity, okay? And there are more operational benefits when you run, those pop-up events as opposed to a continuous channel. First of all, you don't have to fit a slot on a TV channel timeline anymore. So that problem goes away. You don't need to worry about, cutting the start of something or the end of something or doing joining in progress. That goes away. For sports rights, it's also easier because when you had a linear channel with different games, some of the games could be blackout for a given user, some others would not be blackout. That was complicated to manage. A single game, it's a yes or no per user, so it's easier to manage. And I know it's a long story, but we do all of that today, and we do more and more. So I think it's important to share. Finally, back to the user experience. When you do a 24/7 channel on a streaming platform, typically you have the same quality parameters, throughout all the programming that goes in the channel. But when you do a single pop-up event, some select, games can have different higher quality parameters. And yes, it's going to cost you more. You're going to allocate more resources, but it's a reasonable value proposition because those are the games that appeal to the biggest audiences. So, I mean, long story short, you see, it's not your good old linear channel anymore. When you do streaming, you do it differently. You don't use resources 24/7, so it's more efficient. Okay, and you bring better user experience because you can focus on that particular live event during the duration of the event, all the best quality you can get. And then we can talk more later about additional sophisticated features that you can also deploy.
Okay, thank you, Jean. So again, tying into the previous question, I kind of wanted to ask you all sort of what to you personally do you see as some live streaming solutions and scenarios as well, sort of, case studies or examples that you've witnessed recently that sort of stand out to you as really cutting edge?
So from a fan perspective, going back to the fan experience, I think what we have been delivered for Live Golf in the last couple of months with our Live platforms, I think is outstanding. So we launched Live Golf a couple of months ago. Was the sport app #1 in the world for 72 hours in a row. We have more than a couple of millions apps downloads in the first few days. So it was very, very, actually it was more than what we expected. clearly content was free, which always helps. But anyway, the streaming platform was good, was reliable and scalable. So we did deliver a good job there. I think on generally perspective, there are a few areas where the solution could stand out and even more, and which we are working now. So the first one would be, I would say, the artificial intelligence applied to live streaming. So how the AI algorithm can be used, for automated video production, for real-time content moderation, for any personalization, so even virtual host or chat box to interact, with viewers. And the second one would be with augmented reality live streaming. So with AR live streaming overlays, which are now always more important in the sports sector with the live events. They could be application, it could be gaming, it could be whatever kind of solution. Now, for instance, it's very common to include in betting streaming solution. So with the low latency capabilities, you're able to include in betting streaming solution. We are far from generating a massive revenue stream from that, but still is a good starting point, at least, I'd say.
One of the things that that I'm most excited about as far as like live streaming solutions is the opportunity to create feedback loops, both to the content creator, like around the quality of their feed that they're pushing, but also, as others have mentioned earlier, like viewer engagement. So some capabilities that we've added recently to our Mux video product is what we call live ingest health streams. So Mux video is sometimes used as like a live ingest video solution in another company's product. And so there are a couple different levels of removed from the actual producer of content. So it's important to be able to provide a feedback signal to the content producer about how their live ingest stream is working. So with Mux Video, we can push metrics about how the live ingest is performing to Kinesis or PubSub, and our customer can then surface that information back to the video producer. And similarly, just through our Mux data product, being able to provide viewership stats. So all of this is to say just more data around how the live stream is performing ingest wise, but also around viewer engagement. That's what I'm most excited about, is just seeing more data created around the live stream itself. I think the possibilities are there, and there's definitely a lot of demand for it. Makes for a more complicated workflow, but I think it's becoming increasingly important.
Can I just add on top, because I think it's quite relevant, the engagement piece. So we talk a lot about engagement. The reality is every content owners is looking for engagement because they want to retain the users as long as possible in a specific platform, right? And the bigger probably, and sorry for this word, but the biggest cancer of any OTT platform is the churn. So how you engage with the user, how you interact with the user, how you retain the user is key to reduce the churn as much as possible, and so generate extra revenues from each individual fans or users.
Two components to your questions. First, maybe something that doesn't sound cutting edge, but that I was very happy to see adopted at scale for the last World Cup, things like UHD with HDR and low latency streaming. So those are things that for the last World Cup, for some of our customers, we did UHD with over 1 million concurrent streams at scale to a given region of the world that was streaming the World Cup. Another region of the world was focused, Latin America was focused on low latency. They like to have, low latency there for their soccer games. And we had 1.3 million concurrent streams. So that gives you an idea of the scale. I mean, this is great satisfaction, because this is not just, proof of concept anymore. This is stuff that people use for real, the biggest sporting event arguably in the world. So the cutting edge aspect, it's not so much the capability of the feature, but the scale at which you have to run it. Okay. And so for me, that's an important trend, a good trend that we see, because the hope is that it's going to trickle down to more sports in general after you have those big, tentpole events. The second thing about cutting edge is going back to when you start doing, games as single events, not attached to a linear channel anymore. There is a lot of things you do with what is called the manifest that you deliver. HLS and Dash is based on manifests. You deliver manifests. Those manifests are super important. We do a lot of manifest processing manipulation, at Harmonic. And one of the aspects here is that when you do a live event, you deliver a growing manifest, and it has to start exactly at the beginning of the game and exactly at the end of the game, so that then you can synchronize that manifest with additional data. What does that mean? That means that then you can do cool features like mapping in the app, a timeline with the highlights. Okay. And so people joining the game late can quickly, catch up, go back, see the goals if it's a soccer game, the main, baskets if a basketball game, etc. But in order to do that, you need the technology behind it and have that accurate manifest plus very accurate timing information that the app can then use, to map overlays on top of the video. Another aspect of this is another thing you can do that is important for user engagement is the gamification. We're not talking about wagering or betting necessarily, but putting some, little game questions similar to bets, but not for money. Who's going to score the next, basket? Who's going to score the most, in the quarter, et cetera, et cetera. So you engage with your viewers this way, but it has, again, to be tightly synchronized with the live event. So again, accurate manifest, timing information, all of that, that's the technology that brings this. This is super important. And it's cutting edge in terms of user experience, and people don't necessarily realize what goes behind, in terms of technology requirements.
Yeah, no, here. I mean, to happily spend an entire hour talking about synchronization and time codes and all this kind of stuff, because it can be important both for legislative reasons and for community reasons. At which point, it becomes just incredibly important. Two things very quickly that I see as cutting edge. One of them I see as kind of socially cutting edge as well as technically cutting edge, which is an emergence of community broadcasting. So there's some really interesting projects going on with some national broadcasters who are saying every high school and above game should be available on TV. And so rather than streaming 5 soccer matches on a Saturday afternoon, they might be streaming 2,000 soccer matches. And how do I go about doing that? So you've got to begin with an AI cameraman, because you can't send a camera crew to 2,000 games on a Saturday afternoon, at least not economically. And then how do I make that a compelling experience? And then how do I so I think it's both technically extremely interesting and I think socially extremely interesting, because you are tapping into extremely committed but very small audiences. By doing that, the national broadcaster involved, I don't think it's particularly after making a buck from it. I think they're doing it because they think it is a socially responsible thing to do. But I think it's a really exciting and interesting use of AI technology to be able to implement bits of it, and maybe in a few years' time there'll then be compelling commentary on top of that, which is also AI generated, to make it scalable and economic all the way to that level. And then I think the other area that is a kind of personal interest for ideas and Norsk is that ability to be able to iterate rapidly over what that experience is. To be one of the things that's interesting with media technology is, in order to deliver a compelling consumer experience, you tend to have there's an awful lot of technology. Video technology is hard, and there's an awful lot of standards. There's an awful lot of detail, almost none of which is actually differentiating or of interest to the customer. So a customer, for example, doesn't care, shouldn't care one iota whether we use Dash or HLS to deliver a live manifest. They shouldn't care about whether it's GPS time codes or SEI time codes coming from the camera or any of this. They should care about the results of that. And I think at the moment, the state of art of the industry is that you have an awful lot of cost of doing business code and not enough business code and not enough experience code. And in order to be able to create a new and exciting user experience, typically you've got massive teams, programming in detailed technologies with hard stuff, and so your iteration times are necessarily slow. And one of the things that we're really excited about doing is trying to dramatically reduce some of those innovation times, so that you're getting these kind of new and exciting solutions out in a matter of sort of days or weeks, not months or years.
So sort of going to the question, so the world is sort of shifting its gaze to XR solutions and the metaverse. So where does live streaming fall into that, in your opinions?
So I think there are a lot of opportunities around just creating a more immersive experience, both for the content producer, but also for the people who are obviously consuming that content. Some things that are top of mind for me are like hybrid events. So I think live streaming in the metaverse or AR can potentially like bridge the gap between physical and virtual events. Perhaps people who are attending an event in person could interact more seamlessly with those who are attending virtually. At Mux, we've had like several company on-sites where people are unable to attend for whatever reason, and it'd be great if we could find a way through this technology to incorporate people into that event more seamlessly. And then the other thing is, I think there's an opportunity for just more immersive news and storytelling through VR and AR. At Mux, we've got a customer called Citizen that allows people to live stream news that's happening near them, like in the moment. It'd be amazing to see the ability to kind of like have individuals be able to create a more immersive experience for people who are viewing that information, either for first responders, if it's a public safety issue, or for people who are just genuinely curious about what's going on in their vicinity. I think there's just a lot of opportunity for creating a more immersive experiences for people through live streaming as this technology evolves.
There are many trends, right? Let me explain maybe what Ulift is focusing on. So we are one of the few companies that's really focusing on developing a proper IP in terms of personalization and interaction inside our broader solution that is full end-to-end video streaming platform. So we are continuing working through and leveraging AI and learning machine to deliver personalized content to viewers, because if you are a fan of a club, which is clearly representing to a league, what you expect to receive is content related to that specific team or club, rather than content that is not necessarily related to what you are expecting. Then we are working on social integration. So, and specifically with live streaming, that is becoming always more deeply integrated into social media platforms and metaverse. I'm very curious to see, the first glasses from Apple, how the new NBA or NFL application would be developed. But I think that could be a potential new trend that we could see in the next 3-4 years. And finally, the new monetization opportunities, right? Because live streaming evolves into XR and metaverse, new monetization opportunities will emerge and will help creators to generate more revenues from virtual goods, for sponsorship, from brand collaborations, from in-platform transactions. You can also think that live streaming platforms they may introduce virtual currencies or tokens, to facilitate those transactions. So those are the trends that I see mostly coming.
Yeah, sure. On one level, I'm a bit of a skeptic. To be brutally honest, I think that what AI brings, I think, is a given, and there are certain aspects to providing an enhanced experience through technology that I absolutely buy into. So we recently did a broadcast live pop concert where we were sent 38 or something raw audio feeds from all the different instruments and the singers, and also various microphones in the crowd, and users could choose where they were spatially and change their mind as to where they were in the concert as part of that. And I think if you move that into I'm watching a basketball game and I can choose whether I'm sat at the front row, just over here, and the sound is appropriate and so on and so forth. I think there are some aspects to that will make for incredible user experiences. The kind of business streaming world experimented quite hard with augmented reality and virtual reality type meeting environments over the last few years, and frankly, it didn't go particularly well. Business people want to, you want to have a meeting. You don't want to have to, press a mouse and click 17 times to get from the foyer to your bench in the auditorium. Where that becomes interesting is if I then talk to the person next to me and so on and so forth. But I think I think some of the existing metaphors are a bit hackneyed, and the technology isn't there. And will it become the norm for everybody to sit and wear a headset that weighs as much as the current headsets do, and so on and so forth, for extended periods of time? No, I don't think that will become the norm. I think technology has quite a long way to go before it becomes so seamless that it's acceptable. So if I want to do remote surgery and all that kind of stuff, that's amazing. There are use cases which I think absolutely strongly justify it. Do I think rather than having a Zoom meeting in 3 years' time, we'll all be sat there in Apple headsets, being in the same room? No, I don't. I don't. I think where it's great, and where it isn't, there's a lot of people trying to, here's a solution looking for a problem, and I think it's a little bit overhyped still.
Yeah, I definitely
think. Last words.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely good to have like a bit of skepticism about it, and I think I share that as well a little bit. Jean, did you have anything you wanted to add to that as well?
So at Harmonic, we've been looking at VR for a long time from the standpoint of the use case would be not everybody can have a front row seat at a live sports game, so you get your VR set and then you can enjoy that experience that just a select few can have in physically. So we try that, and we keep looking at this, by the way, because one of the things we do for over 20 years, video compression, low latency. So very interesting when there is a use case that potentially needs a huge amount of video compression. And when you do VR, what you see is not 4K, it's basically much higher resolution, a lot of what they call tiles that potentially, or in real time, bringing the entire surrounding that you have in the arena. And it's a huge technical challenge, and you have compression challenges, latency challenges, that lag, that is the biggest issue when you put a VR headset on you, that makes it a bad experience. It's not easy to solve. And I agree with Adrian, I don't think we're here yet. I don't know when we'll get there. There are still, progress being made on the set itself, like with Apple, also on the technology to deliver that huge amount of content and the pipes that you need. So we'll keep tracking this. This is an interesting use case, but we're not there yet. One last thing slightly different on the AI aspect. We see a lot of AI that is used in video workflows today when it comes to auto detection or auto creation, like auto detection of highlights, auto creation of highlights, auto detection of breaks in the video content where you could put commercial breaks, right? All of that happens through AI more and more, but it works on video files, not in real time. So for me, what's very interesting is to look at when is that becoming available for live streaming. live, real time. I need to detect this. I need to make real-time decision on that. Today, we're not there yet, but we are closely also tracking this, working on this. An example that we have showcased that is a cool one is a new way to monetize your live sports is what we call a dynamic brand or virtual, placement. You have a table, you have a billboard in the video, and so you're gonna put, a brand there inside the video content. You have tools and ways to do that. It's really cool, but it's all in files. When can we do that real time on a live game? And that will be a challenge that will be very interesting, for the next few years.